When the government controls the money, the people suffer. And in this video, we're going to take a look at the alarming rise of protests around the world, and without being overly simplistic, what's causing them and how do we fix it? What's going on? My name is Aaron, and as I journey into my exploration of cryptocurrency, it has led me into the theory of money, how money is perceived, the role of money in society, and the role of governments as they control the money, what happens to the countries they govern. And if you stay to the end, I promise I'm going to do my best to wrap this all up and relate this to crypto. Now, these first clips are people in Russia who are expressing their disdain and protesting Vladimir Putin's mobilization of 300,000 people, soldiers, into the Ukrainian war. This is a clip of tanks deployed in China to defend against protests near banks. With the government of China forcing strict lockdown measures, the people are being pushed to the brink of starvation. And you know you have a problem when the polite Canadians start rioting. They are gathering in crazy numbers, chanting Trudeau must go. And the reasons are layered. Extreme COVID measures, draconian lockdowns, people being called terrorists, emergency powers being enacted. I'm no expert, but it seems like a lot of Canadians are pretty upset. And of course, I have to mention the Iranian protest over the murder of Mahsa Amini. Apparently, she wore her headdress a little too loose. Some cops arrested her, accidentally killing her, erupting massive amounts of violent protests in her name. So what's causing all this? Why is this all happening? Now, certainly each one of these situations are unique on its own. They have its own political entanglements, its own layers of complexity, and its own characters and players. But all of that stripped away, it all summarizes down to a few basic points of the human condition. And it's this, that the human heart is not equipped to handle absolute power. It is not equipped to handle just so much authority, so much rule, so much sovereignty over any given situation. Otherwise, it will turn on itself and it'll turn on other people and go corrupt and go dark. I'll give you an example. Do you know how long World War I and World War II lasted? World War I lasted 4 long years, and World War II lasted 6 egregiously long years of fighting, of conquest, of strategy, of expenditure of human capital and human lives. And when I found out the reason on why it lasted so long, it really just blew my mind into the corruption of the human heart. And it was this: it's because they had the money to fight that long. Well, truthfully, they didn't have the money. They called it fiat. They got off the gold standard and they just kept on printing and printing. And if they needed more tanks, they printed more. And if they needed more guns, they printed more. And if they needed more soldiers, they printed even more. And that is why these wars lasted so long. It's because of the governments and the people in charge. They wanted to keep on fighting until their ends were met. And the result was lost lives, a shattered economy, a wasteland of beautiful countryside, and a broken monetary policy. If governments were on a gold standard, they would have run out of money. They wouldn't have had enough money to supply them for 6 years, for 4 years. They probably had enough for 2 years, and that'd be it. But no, they just kept on fighting. They kept on pouring more money. They kept on printing more money. Why? Because they had absolute power. When you're able to create more money and just to pay it off and to pay people and pay soldiers, you have absolute power. You've gained it. And what happens? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Every time. Every country got off the gold standard, and this created a serious dilemma. It took money away from the markets and turned it into a politically controlled economic tool. Governments that control the money control all the most economic, educational, political, and cultural activity in a nation. When we give total control over the money, we give total control over the power of a nation to some politicians who we trust that they have our best interests in mind. And so I think this is what we have with all these current protests. It's a struggle between the people who don't have any control and any power, between the people who do have control and who do have power. And that power is the power to manipulate the money supply. Okay, that power is the ability to control and manipulate the money so that they use that money to gain more power. And when they get more power, they want to control more of that money. And so that cycle continues. Well, looks like we need to stop the foolishness. Enter Bitcoin. Bitcoin does not allow the infinite printing of itself, okay? There's no manipulation of it, and there's no control over Bitcoin. It is mathematically finite and infinitely transparent so that anyone can see where money's being moved, how it's being used, and who has the most of it. The power of infinite money printing helps to control the education system, helps to indoctrinate the children. It helps to determine outcomes of wars and political debates, but Bitcoin gives the power back to the people, strips all that away in a decentralized form so that no one person has that power. Just think about what we're doing at the FOMC meetings when we're listening to someone who is not elected tell us how much these green little pieces of paper and how hard we have to work and to pour our life force out to get the fruits of our labor just disintegrated in our hands to try to spend it somewhere where all that value is just leaving our pockets and we don't even notice it. Bitcoin solves all of that stuff. It doesn't do that now, admittedly, but there will come a day where the people who love that monetary policy, who are in charge and in control, are shaking in their boots because people who love peace and prosperity will adopt Bitcoin as the new standard for money.